Homeostasis is the process of maintaining stable internal environment in response to any changes in the external environment. For example, when your body temperature is increased, it goes beyond 37 degrees Celsius, which is the normal temperature of the body. Your neurons sense that change in the temperature and then send signal to the brain, where the thermoregulatory center of your brain, which is hypothalamus, sends a signal to your sweat glands to start sweating, and sweating causes lowering of your body temperature. So this is the way how your body has actually cancelled out the effect where increase in temperature is decreased by sweating. This kind of homeostasis is called negative homeostasis because we are trying to cancel out the initial effect. Another kind of homeostasis is positive homeostasis, in which we want to enhance the initial effect. For example, at the time of childbirth, when the head of a baby is pushed against the cervix, a signal is sent from the cervix to the brain that leads to the release of oxytocin hormone from the pituitary gland, and this oxytocin hormone then sends enough blood to the uterus and stimulates the contraction of uterus, which overall makes it easier for baby to push further and come out of mother's body. And this cycle keeps on going unless the baby is delivered. What are tissues? Tissues are the group of cells that work together to perform a specific function. These cells can be structurally and functionally related. They don't have to be identical, but they are related in terms of their function and structure. Sometimes around these cells, you might have some extracellular matrix. So the cells have some spaces in between them, which are called the extracellular spaces, and in these spaces you have a matrix or fluid called the extracellular matrix. The first class of tissues we are going to talk about are connective tissues. Connective tissue is the one that provides structure, support, and protection to the organs. They are composed of cells, fibers, and extracellular matrix. So that is their basic structure. You would have some cells with a matrix or a semi-jelly-like material around them, and in this material you would have some fibers, which can be elastin fiber or collagen fibers. The main functions of connective tissue are they provide structural support. For example, bones and cartilage are connective tissue. They bind several parts of your body together. For example, tendons and ligaments are also connective tissue. They provide protection. For example, adipose tissue, which is the fat tissue in your body, provide cushion to the internal organs. They store energy. Again, in adipose tissue you have reserved fat which you can burn at the time of starvation. They help in transporting material. For example, blood is a kind of connective tissue in which oxygen and nutrients are transported, and they also contribute in defense, because the white blood cells of blood actually have the immune function in our body. Based on their structure and function, connective tissue are mainly of three types: fibrous connective tissue, supportive connective tissue, and fluid connective tissue. The fibrous connective tissue is characterized by the presence of dense fibers. So that's why it has that name. They provide strength, support, and flexibility to internal organs and structures. These class of tissue mainly includes tendons, ligaments, and dermis in our skin. So they are further of two types: dense connective tissue and loose connective tissue. So as the name suggests, you would have a very loose arrangement of the fibers in loose connective tissue and a denser or tightly packed arrangement of fibers in dense connective tissue. Loose connective tissue is further of three types: areolar, adipose, and reticular. And dense connective tissue is then of two types: regular or irregular. So here is a general structure of the loose fibrous connective tissue. You see that there are cells. You have cells here, and you again have cells here and here. They have extracellular matrix. There are spaces in between cells. They are not very tightly packed, and they also have fibers around them. Areolar tissue is the one that is widely distributed under our epithelium, which is our skin, and they form small pockets of packaging around our organs. Adipose tissue is the fat containing tissue. It specializes in containing cells which have lipids or oil in them. They are found under skin and also around in the pockets around our internal organs, again to provide insulation and cushioning. Reticular tissue is named so because reticular means forming networks. So in this tissue there are networks of fibers. They also provide support and protection around soft organs inside our body, such as liver, spleen, and lymph nodes. Dense connective tissue is of two types, regular and irregular. So as the name suggests, the regular would have a more regular arrangement or a parallel arrangement of collagen bundles in them, whereas in the irregular, the collagen fibers or the protein fibers will not be as properly arranged, and they will be more irregular in their arrangement. Regular connective tissue is found in tendons and ligaments, whereas the irregular is found in dermis under our skin, in our joints, and in the fibrous covering of our internal organs. The regular connective tissue provides strong attachment and resistance to the pulling forces, whereas the irregular is mainly for strengthening and support in multiple directions. So they do provide support, but not as a tendon or a ligament would do. Supportive connective tissues are those that specialize in providing structural support to our skeleton. For example, cartilages and bones in our body, they make our skeleton, they provide shape and posture to our body. They have dense extracellular matrix. So as I mentioned earlier, in between cells in connective tissue, there are huge intracellular spaces. These spaces are filled with jelly-like material, and in supportive connective tissue, this material is relatively very dense. Talking about the cartilages now. So cartilage are firm and flexible connective tissue without any direct blood supply. The cells present in them are called the chondrocytes, and these chondrocytes, as you can see here, are inside these small spaces or cavities called the lacunae. Around them they have extracellular matrix, and in this matrix are the fibers present. These fibers are protein fibers, which can be collagen or elastic fiber. Cartilage are mainly of three types: hyaline cartilage, elastic cartilage, and fibrocartilage. Structurally, the hyaline cartilage has chondrocytes and they are present in the lacunae, but they have more clear, smooth, or glassy appearance. They are present in nose, trachea, larynx, and in intercostal muscles in our rib cage, and they are also present in around our bones. The elastic cartilage has more elastic fiber in them, and their matrix looks very dense. They are present in our external ear, the flap of our ear, the hard part of ear that we can feel from outside, epiglottis, and in our auditory tubes. The fibrocartilage is the strongest and the most durable form of cartilage. They have very dense arrangement of collagen fibers in the form of bundles, and they can resist a lot of compression and shock. So this kind of connective tissue would be required in our spinal cord. So they are present in the intervertebral disc, in our pubic symphysis, which help in childbirth, and in our kneecaps. Another type of supportive connective tissue are bones. Bones are hard and very rigid. Their cells, the cells they are formed from, are called osteocytes, and again the osteocytes are present in the lacunae. So these are the osteocytes which are present in the lacunae, and these lacunae can communicate through with each other through these connections called the canaliculi. The extracellular fluid around them, these extracellular spaces, are filled with calcium phosphate, which is also called hydroxyapatite, which is why the bones are very strong. They have a lot of blood supply. So here you can see that they have blood vessels all over their cross section. Now if you look at their structure, the osteocytes are present in the bone, and there is extracellular matrix around them. These cells are present in concentric rings around the blood vessels. So if you project this thing here, you will see concentric rings of osteocytes around the blood vessel. So this one arrangement of blood vessel with osteocytes around them is called an osteon. So there are osteon you can consider as a basic unit of what makes a tissue. If these osteons are present very tightly, they make the compact part of our bone, and if they are present very loosely, then they make the spongy part of our bone. Third kind of connective tissue is the fluid connective tissue. As the name suggests itself, this kind of connective tissue is fluidy or liquid in nature. They help in transporting nutrients, gases, hormones, and waste material throughout our body. For example, blood and lymph. So blood is the primary transport medium in our body. It contains plasma, which is the extracellular matrix, and a bunch of cells. So if you think about the structure, basic structure of a connective tissue, it has cells, it has extracellular matrix, and there are a bunch of proteins in the plasma. Plasma is the watery part of our blood, which contains proteins. It contains electrolytes, hormones, nutrients, and it helps in maintaining blood pressure and blood volume. If you talk about the cellular components of blood, then there are mainly three kinds of cells. The red blood cells that contains hemoglobin, and their main function is to transport oxygen and carbon dioxide. Second is white blood cells. White blood cells are mainly the defense cells of our body, and they fight infection, they produce antibodies, so protect our body from diseases and pathogens. They are further of several different kinds that we'll talk in further lectures. And third are platelets, whose main function is to create a blood clot. Lymph, another kind of connective tissue, is mainly formed from the interstitial fluid, which is present in the spaces between the tissues and cells in our body, and this fluid gets drained into these lymphatic vessels. This drainage is very important because you have a buildup of toxins in our tissues, and we need to constantly remove these toxins and waste material from our body. So lymph helps in transporting the immune cells and remove waste from tissue spaces. It removes excess fluid, which helps in maintaining the fluid balance in our body, and these immune cells help fight with any kind of infection. Drainage of this lymph from our body is very important because if you have buildup of fluid in different pockets in your body, that leads to swelling or edema, and you can have pathogens in some part of your body which are not cleared, or toxins which are not getting removed. And lymph also plays a very important role in absorbing lipid from our digestive tract, and these lipids are then carried to other parts of the body through lymph. Muscle tissue helps us in movement, maintaining posture, and heat production. The muscle tissues are made up of muscle fibers, also called the myocytes, and they are mainly of three types: skeletal tissue, cardiac tissue, and smooth tissue. So the muscle tissue, other than providing support, posture, movement, and heat production, also help in blood circulation and digestion, because it helps in moving our gut and help in churning or breaking down food. It helps in propelling blood from our blood vessels. The first type of muscle tissue is the skeletal muscle. The skeletal muscle are called striated because they have these striations on them, or these lines on them, and they are voluntary muscles because we can move these muscles according to our own will. These muscles are attached to the skeleton of our body, and wherever you feel that you can move your body parts and skeleton, that is all because of the muscles, the skeletal muscles present there. These muscles have cylindrical arrangement, and they are multinucleated. They have several nuclei in them, and again on them you can see the striations. The muscles, the skeletal muscles are controlled by the somatic nervous system, which is the under your own will type of nervous system. You can make these muscles move according to your own will. For example, bicep or triceps in your arm. So think about it. When you want to move them with your own will, you can move them, control their movement. But contrary to that are smooth muscles. So smooth muscles are present in digestive tract, in blood vessels, in uterus. But they are involuntary muscles. You cannot think and make them move. They appear smooth because they are non-striated. They don't have that kind of perpendicular lines on them. They are more spindle shaped. They are shaped like a spindle, and they have one nuclei per cell. They contract smoothly, slowly, and in a rhythmic manner, which is why it can contribute towards the functioning of internal organs of your body. It's controlled by autonomic nervous system. That itself suggests that it's not under your own will, but it's an autonomic system. It works on its own. It sets its own rhythm. Third type of muscle tissue are cardiac tissue. Structurally, they are striated. They look like skeletal tissue because of the lines present on them, but they are unlike a skeletal muscle. They have branches. So here you can see that they appear to have branches because there are several different cells which are connected together through intercalated discs. So these intercalated discs are also much darker and clearly visible under the microscope. Cardiac muscle can set their own rhythm, and because of the connection between different cells, the contraction of one muscle fiber triggers the contraction of the next muscle fiber. That is why they are able to maintain a rhythm. And these muscles are present in your heart, and that makes sense because if they can maintain their own rhythm and contract it at a regular pace, they can set your heartbeat. So comparing these three types of muscle tissues, the striations are present in smooth muscle. That's why they appear smooth. The skeletal muscle is multinucleated, whereas the cardiac muscle and smooth muscle are uninucleated. Out of these three muscles, the cardiac muscle and smooth muscles are involuntary. You don't move them or contract them at your own will, but the skeletal muscles are the one that you can move at your own will. Skeletal muscle, as the name suggests, is attached to the skeleton, to the bones in your body. Cardiac muscle are present in heart, and smooth muscles are present in all the hollow organs in your body. Next kind of tissue are the nervous tissue. So nervous tissue help in conducting the information from one part of the body to another. So if your body receives a stimuli or there is a change in external environment, you can sense that change through your sense organs. They contain neurons. That neuron take the signal from the sense organ to the brain or spinal cord. That's where you process that information, and again neurons send the information to muscles or gland to produce an effect to that stimulus. So basically the nervous system is made up of two kinds of cells: neurons, which are actually the cells that conduct electrical impulse, and neuroglia, which are the supporting cells around those neurons. Neurons are present in brain, spinal cord, and in nerves, which are spread all over your body. The nervous system helps in receiving sensations from environment, integrate the information, and then produce a response. This helps in maintaining an internal environment and helps in understanding, learning, cognition. So neurons are the basic unit of nervous system which transmit electrical and chemical signals. Based on their structure, they have a cell body, which is normally the cell that you see, and they have all the organelles, for example, mitochondria, ribosomes, the usual cell organelles that you know, and the nucleus. On their membrane, they have another extension which is called axon. These axons are wrapped with some other kind of cells called the Schwann cells, and these cells are making a sheath around the axon. Okay, let's recap the structure of a neuron. A neuron has dendrites. Dendrites are these extensions present on the cell body which receives the signal. Then you have the cell body where the signal is processed, and it also contains the nucleus. Then on the other end they have axons which transmit the signal to the brain or muscle or other organ where it's supposed to go, and they make connections with the other neurons, and these connections are called the synapse. If you look at the structural differences, you can have a unipolar neuron in which you have one axon but you don't really have any dendrites, or you can have a bipolar neuron in which you have the cell body and there are two extensions coming out of it. You can have a pseudo unipolar in which there is a cell body and there appears to be one extension coming out, but then this extension immediately divides into two, kind of becoming bipolar. And then you have a very common type of neuron, which is a multipolar neuron, in which there are several extensions called dendrites coming out of the cell body, and one major axon which takes the signal away from the cell. So as mentioned earlier, other than neurons, neuroglia are an important part of the nervous tissue. Neuroglia performs several different kinds of functions. Let's first see what are different kinds of neuroglia cells present in the nervous system. So if we talk about central nervous system, which is brain and spinal cord, you have these four different kinds of neuroglia cells. In your peripheral nervous system, which are the nerves, the cranial and spinal nerves spread all over your body, you have two different kinds of neuroglia cells. So these different kinds of cells are helpful in maintaining a blood-brain barrier so that any kind of unwanted material or even pathogens should not enter from your blood to your central nervous system. They also help in producing the cerebrospinal fluid, which is the circulating liquid inside your central nervous system. They make the myelin sheath around your neurons. As we talked about earlier, there is a sheath around your axons. So you can see there is this axon, and there are cells wrapping around these axons called they make the myelin sheath. Then you can have microglia cells, which are immunological cells. They provide protection against the microorganisms. In your peripheral nervous system, you can have satellite cells or Schwann cells. Again, their function is to regulate the transmission of impulses and to create the myelin sheath around the axons. Third type of major class of tissues is the epithelial tissue. So epithelial tissue covers the surfaces of the body and lines the cavities of the internal organs, and they also form glands. So their function is protective. They help in absorption of nutrients, filtration, secretion, excrete waste material, and also receive sensation. A characteristic feature of epithelial cell are that the cells are very tightly packed and they are present on the surfaces, on the borders, and they have one apical side, which is the upper side, and the basal side. Towards the basal side you have then other kinds of tissues like connective tissue or muscle. They are not very vascular. They don't have blood supply because otherwise a small scratch on your skin would cause a lot of bleeding. And they have very good capability of regeneration. If you have wounds or scars, they heal very quickly. Types of epithelial connective tissue are first based on the number of layers. If you only have one layer of epithelial tissue, it's a simple epithelial tissue, and if you have multiple layers of connective tissue, then it's a stratified connective tissue. Then based on their shape, if you have flat cells in your tissue, then it's called squamous. If you have cube shaped, they are cuboidal. Column shaped, they are columnar. They usually have cilia or microvilli on their surface to increase absorption. And if they appear to be two layered, because the nuclei are not aligned but they are at different levels, so you would feel that there are two different layers of cells, although it's just one. It's called a pseudo stratified, means false appearance of being multi-layered. If they, again in the category of being multi-layered, they can be flat cells, they can be cube or columnar or transitional, and transitional are the ones that are undergoing shift in their position and shape, because this kind of organs, or wherever these tissues are present, those organs are undergoing expansions and changes in their shape, for example bladder, urethra, or ureter. While studying human biology or anatomy, it becomes important to understand the body planes, because it helps you understand what part of the body we are talking about or how we are looking at the body. So sagittal plane is the median plane. When we cut our body like this, so you would have left side of the body and right side of the body, that is the sagittal plane. The frontal plane is this one, in which you can separate your body or cut the body in anterior and posterior, or front and back part of the body. This kind of viewing is helpful when you have to perform a chest x-ray. A transverse plane is this, when you cut the body from the middle, and you can talk in terms of upper half and lower half of the body, or superior or inferior sections of the body. And this kind of plane is helpful while studying the CT scans. There are three main or major cavities in our body: thoracic cavity, abdominal cavity, and the pelvic cavity. But pelvic and abdominal are kind of continuous or fused, and we call them abdominal pelvic cavity. Thoracic cavity is above the diaphragm, so diaphragm is what separates these two parts. Thoracic cavity further has three regions: pleural cavity, which is around your lungs; pericardial cavity, which is around the heart; and mediastinum cavity, which is around the other major organs, which are thymus, trachea, esophagus, and your major blood vessels. Then abdominal cavity is the one that is located under the diaphragm. It covers stomach, intestine, liver, pancreas, spleen, and it's lined by the peritoneum, or the peritoneal cavity. It's the name that's given to it. Pelvic cavity is below the abdominal cavity. It covers the reproductive organs, urinary bladder, and rectum, and it's partially enclosed by the pelvis, which is your girdle, the bones in your hip. Body membranes are the thin layers of tissue that cover the surfaces lines the cavities and separate structures within the body. They can be epithelial or connective in their origin. If they are epithelial, they are further of three kinds: mucus, serous, and cutaneous. The mucus layer mainly secretes the slimy material called the mucus that provides nourishment or moisture around your tissues. The serous layer is the one that secretes the serous fluid that reduces frictions between different organs. For example, when your heart wants to expand or your lungs want to expand, there should be some fluid around them that provides them cushioning or space to become bigger. Cutaneous is the largest membrane, and its main function is mainly to protect your body. It's the covering that makes your skin the largest membrane all over your body. The skin basically is the cutaneous membrane. Synovial membrane is the one that is present around the joints. For example, here in your knee, you have this space in between your two bones, and they make a joint here. Here you have some fluid filled inside the space, and there is a membrane around this joint called the synovial membrane. So the fluid present here is called the synovial fluid. It provides lubrication and cushioning for the joints to move easily, and so that your bones are not constantly rubbing against each other.